Have you ever wondered what the term as is means in real estate? Well, today I'm going to take a deep dive into as is properties. What is an as is property? Who would sell an as is property? What's the motivation behind selling as is? And then some tips for home buyers who are thinking about potentially buying an as is property, or homeowners alike who would like to sell their house as is. But first, I'm Steve Jamrock with Realty Executives Premier. And if you haven't done so yet, I would love it if you would click that subscribe button, give me a follow. If you like the content in this video, give it a thumbs up. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment box below. So first off, what is an as-is property? Well, as-is simply means that that homeowner is selling the property and they are not going to do any repairs to that property whatsoever. And as a home buyer, you're accepting that property in its current condition with the current knowledge that you have about the property and with no future guarantees. So does that mean buying an as-is property is risky or you shouldn't do it? Well, there are some risks involved, absolutely, just like with any real estate transaction, but it doesn't mean you necessarily should shy away from as-is properties. I think as-is stigmatized, that term, a little bit. And I've been in properties that, yes, of course, they're in poor condition. They're being sold as is. They're could be ready to fall down. They're just really bad condition properties. But I've also been in as-is properties that are beautiful homes and in really great condition. So that's why if you're going to go down the as-is route, it's important that you hire a realtor to guide you along to make sure you do all the proper due diligence involved with buying an as-is property, and that realtor has experience with as-is properties and that type of particular seller who's selling that home as is. So now, who would sell a property as is? Well, there's basically five different groups, we'll call them, that I could think of that would sell a property as is. And most of the time they sell because they have not been inside that property. They have no knowledge of that property. Now that's for most of the groups, but we'll get to the other groups that actually have knowledge of the property and what that means as well here in a second. But here are the five groups that would sell a property as is typically. Number one, and I think this is the one that most people think about, bank foreclosures or REO properties, real estate owned properties. So when a bank forecloses on a mortgage, that property comes back to them and they turn around to sell it to recoup their losses from that bad loan. So they've never been in the property. We're not talking about a typical seller who's inside the house all the time. This is an entity that's never seen the property, never been in property. They may have seen pictures and got a report from a local agent on the ground, but for the most part, they have no knowledge of the condition of any of the systems or anything about the property whatsoever. So they're going to sell it as is. The second group would be an auction property, very similar to a foreclosure, but with an auction property, they're looking for a quick disposition of that property, a quick sale. So as far as inspections, and actually I can probably do another video on auction properties at a later date because they're very detailed. And if you are going to go an auction route, make sure you have a realtor involved to help guide you along there. But with an auction, they're looking for a quick sale. They're not going to wait on inspections or any other contingencies there. They're looking to move that property quickly. Again, most likely they've never been inside the property, so they're going to sell it as is. The third group would be investors, big and small alike. So when I'm thinking about big investors, I'm thinking about large corporate entities or large groups of investors that get around and buy up lots of properties in an area and either turn around and rent them and then sell them at a later date, or just go ahead and turn around and sell them as is quickly to liquidate them. Again, these are investors that have never been inside the property, so they don't know much about the property. They have no idea of the condition, et cetera. So they would be selling as is as well. Smaller investors are a little bit different. You get your local home investors that are out there flipping houses, and you could probably get a little information from them as far as, they're going to know if they've replaced the furnace or replaced the roof or replaced the plumbing, et cetera. But it's not their primary residence. They've never lived in it. So most of the time, they're going to sell that property as is because there are certain things that they probably don't know about the property. The fourth group would be estate sales, probate. This is where somebody passes away and the family or the trust, whoever's involved with settling that estate, is selling the property. Think about a parent or a grandparent, somebody passes away, and then the heirs are involved in selling that property. And while they may have lived at the property at one point, they haven't been there in years, or if they are there, they're not there on a, they're not living in the property. So they don't know the condition of the home. So again, they're going to sell that property as is. And the fifth group would be your traditional, normal homeowner who just decides he wants to sell his property as is for, that's his or her goal moving forward. For example, maybe they want a quick sale. They don't want to deal with having to do any repairs. They want to just move on from the property and get on to the next part of their life. Or maybe they don't have the means or the capabilities of doing repairs to the property. So that's why they would sell as is. Now, the difference with that traditional homeowner, you are not exempt from disclosing any defects or major, or I shouldn't say major knowledge, any major defects or any defects at all with that property. If you've lived in that property as your primary residence, it's your responsibility to disclose any knowledgeable defects or concerns regarding that property. So as is doesn't protect you from not disclosing. So if you are an owner occupant of a primary residence that you've lived in and you want to sell as is, you still have to disclose any known defects with that property. That's very important if you're a homeowner thinking about selling as is. So if you are a home buyer, let's go back to you real quick, and you're thinking about buying a property as is, some of the common questions I get are, can I get a home inspection? And the answer is yes, but that home inspection is going to be for your knowledge only. So, when it comes to a bank foreclosure, for example, you get an offer accepted on it, you will have an inspection period, just like if you're buying a traditional house. And then when that inspection comes back, if there is an undisclosed major defect that has popped up there, again, they're not going to do repairs to the property, but you're most likely going to be able to get released from that deal if it's something you don't want to move forward with. Same thing with an estate sale or a traditional sale. If there is a major defect that wasn't disclosed or known about, you can go ahead and most likely get released from that deal majority of the time. Again, they're not going to do repairs to the property because the property is being sold as is. When it comes to the investors, again, it gets a little trickier sometimes. Majority of the time as well, if there's something undisclosed that they don't know about, they're going to release you from the deal if it's, again, a major defect. Sometimes with some of the larger investors, they get a little nitpicky and what is major, what is not, what is a big deal, what is not to them. So again, make sure you have your realtor involved there to cover all the details with you and guide you through step by step along the way. Now back to auction properties real quick and home inspections. This is really important. And again, while it's super important, if you have never participated in a real estate auction, make sure you have a realtor who knows what you're doing there, because in a real estate auction, again, they're looking to move quickly. Once they accept a bid on that property, they expect you to meet a cold, hard close date. So they're not going to allow inspection periods. They're most likely not going to allow any other contingencies as well. So any inspections are going to need to be done before you place a bid on that bid on that property. So when it comes to auction properties, make sure you have everything lined up prior to placing a bid. Okay. Now, what about clear title? Title, liens, judgments, back taxes, etc. Yes, most of the time, majority of the time, I should say, on these properties, you are going to get clear title to these properties. You will get title insurance. They will make sure that all liens, judgments, etc., are removed from them. Be careful, again, sometimes with the investor properties, their as-is can be a little stricter. Make sure you're reading the terms of any addenda that come along with the contracts, where you're not accepting any liens, judgments, etc. with the property. Make sure that they are offering a title search and a title insurance policy with that property to protect you, to make sure that liens and judgments and any encroachments, etc., are taken care of and covered for you. Again, auction properties, they'll have a title insurance policy for you. Bank foreclosures, traditional sales, estate sales, again, they'll all make sure you have clear title. So just make sure when you're dealing with some of the larger investors, if they have their own contract package, make sure you dig in deeply to that contract package to see what they are providing, what is covered, and any terms that may be different from a traditional sale. The other big thing is taxes, back taxes. Again, majority of the time with these as-is properties, taxes are going to be paid up prorated through closing, just like a traditional sale. Again, sometimes when you get to investor properties, going to want to read the verbiage again because they're going to sometimes put in there that they're not paying any back taxes. They're putting everything up there. This is the price. Any back taxes, liens, judgments, etc., are all your responsibility. So again, make sure you have that realtor to help you along to do all your due diligence when it comes to purchasing an as-is property. Now, homeowners, if you're thinking about selling as is, here's 3 tips I can give for you. Number 1, again, disclosures. Disclose, disclose, disclose. You are not exempt from disclosures just because you want to go as is. You know, if your basement leaks, your roof leaks, your water heater doesn't get hot, you have to disclose those items. You're not protected under an as-is veil if you know about these defects. The second thing would be make sure that you have a conversation with your realtor when selling your house to understand that, is this the proper way to go? Does this fit in with your goals? If you can't do any repairs or don't have the means, that's one thing. But again, make sure you understand that here, option A is if you do these minor things to your house, what you could sell your house for. Option B, this is what's going to be if you want to sell as is. And then finally, if you are a homeowner looking to sell as is, I would also have your realtor kind of put something out there to the public about why you're selling as is, just a little wording in the public remarks in the multiple listing service. Hey, well cared for house, buyers selling as is, don't have the capabilities to do any repairs, etc. This just kind of takes the automatic stigma of that as is term. When somebody's reading the description, they see as is, they kind of get a little bit leery. But if you describe why you're selling as is, it kind of takes a little bit of that stigma away, puts them at ease a little bit, and then they continue to read on and have that conversation. And if they're interested in the property, take it from there. So again, just kind of disclose up front why you're selling as is. And again, that kind of takes that little stigma of as is properties away. So if you have any other questions about as is properties, what it means, or how to go about buying them or selling them, or any other questions at all, feel free, leave me a comment below or reach out directly. As always, once again, please hit that subscribe button. And if you have any other questions, I'm always available to help out. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.